All right, let's get started. All right, so before we kick off, a quick disclaimer. Views expressed in this talk are my own and do not necessarily reflect those of my employer. So, hello, I'm Graham. I'm a senior tech lead manager at Airbnb on the client engineering team. It's been wonderful to see you all in real life. It's my first time back since before COVID. So thank you, Matt, and the rest of the team for putting on this wonderful conference. Anyway. So I am one of the co-founders of London Apple Admins. I'm on the board for Mac Admins Open Source. And I am also a testicular cancer survivor and Movember fundraiser. So testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer amongst young men. So common, in fact, that I've had 2 people reach out to me in the past year from our community who are going through their own battle with the disease. So our community is not very big, so that really shows you just how common this is. And so how do you fix that? Well, currently they just cut your testicle off, and that's really quite medieval. It's a bit painful. So the only way we're going to find a cure is through funding research and awareness campaigns. So gents, please check yourself. And if any of you find this talk useful in any way, please consider donating to Movember. So today, we're going to talk about building more diverse engineering teams. So I'm sure that more than 0 of you are sitting there thinking, why is this talk at a tech conference? Or why does this white, bearded, approaching middle-aged male tech worker want to talk about this? Well, so first off, let's take a step back and think about what our jobs actually are. Sure, at a basic level, we're making computers work. But who are we doing it for? We're making these things work for our customers, the people who are going to lay their hands on the keyboards on these devices. So when we're building products for these users, a diverse set of experiences and opinions helps us create tools that account for a wider range of our customers' needs. It helps the team be more creative. It reduces groupthink. So at the end of the day, if our teams are nothing like a chunk of the people we're building for, how can we build great products for them? So you may be thinking that you're not a people manager, so you can't do anything to improve the diversity in our community or your organization. You're wrong. Everyone can help build an environment that is hospitable to a diverse range of people, even if it's not in your company. I'm going to touch on some things that you can do to help within our own community. So the place I'd like to start with today is like to be the first interaction a prospective team member will have with you and your company, the job advert. I look at job ads all the time to get ideas for my own, and I see some truly awful ones out there. So I've rewritten the job ad for my team to use really horrible, non-inclusive language. So here we have the opening section. So the one at the top is the one I modified with the help of ChatGPT to be as non-inclusive as possible. And I had to really fight to get the prompt to give me this. So first, let's consider the opening headline. Who we are expecting versus what we're looking for. They look like really small differences. But the first is saying, we expect you to meet every single one of these things. Whereas the second is a bit more open, a bit more inclusive. So let's dig in further. We have words like rockstar, dominate, ninjas, outclassing the competition. These are incredibly aggressive. They're competitive. They're unwelcoming, uninviting. They're particularly uninviting to women and people in minority groups. So next up, on the real job advert at the bottom, we encourage everyone to apply. In our terrible one at the top, we reiterate that we only want the absolute best of the best to apply. If you do not meet every single little thing we need, do not apply. Of course, in the real world, not everyone has had the same opportunities. If you came from a wealthy background, you might have gone to a nice fancy college, for example. So before moving on, we need to talk about the qualification section. Determining knowledge in the terms of number of years is really, really silly. You know, most people learn skills at different paces. There's a lot of skills that can be learned on the job. And of course, people will just pluck out most of these numbers out of thin air. Note that the example in our terrible job advert here requires 10 years of experience in open source MDM. So the first commit to micro MDM was 8 years ago. Yeah. So studies have shown that women in particular are less likely to apply for jobs if they do not meet or exceed all of the requirements listed, especially years of experience requirements. So there are tools that you can use to improve the language of your job ads. I spent some time researching these for our own diversity council in my organization. We chose one integrated with our recruiting tools to make it simple for our hiring managers to use. So in no particular order and without any recommendation of any tool over the other, these are a few. So a couple of commercial ones are Text.io and Data People. They both use AI, obviously, because everything uses AI, to process the language of your job description and highlight the parts that you should look at. And they'll also tell you why it's potentially non-inclusive. A free option is Gender Decoder. They offer a more simple word replacement tool. It's just JavaScript, but it's a great first step. And finally, have your AI chat tool of choice, you know, ChatGPT, whatever. Word of warning, though, sometimes AI can produce the exact opposite of what you're looking for, as evidenced by my earlier awful examples. All right, so you've got your job advert online. You just sit back and wait for every kind of person to apply, right? Job done. So I hear this a lot, especially from conference organizers, unfortunately. So kudos to Matt and the team here for actively reaching out to people that don't look like me. So we've already looked at ways of making our job ad more inclusive, but it's never going to be perfect, right? Our job ad isn't going to be seen by every qualified candidate. If you're lucky, you'll have a recruiter who's seeking out diverse candidates for you. But in some organizations, you're going to have to reach out to your network yourself. And I don't mean that only hiring managers should do this. At Airbnb, we ask that all employees reach out to their network to find diverse candidates. Airbnb employees come from all kinds of backgrounds and have all kinds of life experiences, so our networks are pretty varied. So it's down to all of us to make our employee base as diverse as possible. So you may be sitting there thinking, you haven't got a network. Well, if you're here in person, yes, you do, because you're sitting next to it. Everyone's here. Where else might you find a network? Who have you worked with in the past? Looked on LinkedIn? There are 65,000 people on MacAdmins.org Slack. You tell me you don't know a single one of them? I kind of doubt that. So this is the one thing that most of us here can't change, and that's an organization's remote work policies. So remote work is one of the great levelers of our time. So is it really necessary for someone to relocate to go and sit in an office? If so, you are limited to people who are able to relocate. So that will rule out people with children, for example, people who've got other people to care for. Does this role really need to be hybrid or on-site 5 days a week? Unless you're hiring for someone who's crawling under desks to fix cables, probably not. All right, so here we are. We've got this diverse group of hopefully talented people lined up to interview. How do we handle that interview? So let's be honest with yourself about your must-haves versus the things that can be learned on the job. So for an example, to be successful on my team, you need to be able to read and write a language like Go or Python or Swift. If you know one of them, I'm fairly confident you could pick up one of the others. So there's no need to gatekeep on that one. But if someone applied who has never written a line of code before, they would really struggle if they got the spot on my team. So we need to remember that not everyone has had the same learning or career opportunities. So let's take an example that all MDMs are basically the same, right? So if someone's only had the opportunity to use vendor A, should you discount them from not having experience with vendor B's product? Probably not. But don't confuse this with giving everyone a pass. There are a lot of technologies that do not need to be learned on the job. So a personal alarm bell for me is when someone says to me, I want to learn a programming language. I mean, if it's a free language and it doesn't require an expensive IDE or whatever, like, what is holding you back from learning it? You know, Obviously, I'm going to take into account their personal situation, but it's rare that someone has absolutely zero free time in their life where they could have started learning it. Sorry. So you've got a great, diverse team. How do you make sure everyone continues to feel like they belong, like they're safe? Of course, a manager could just tell everyone to behave appropriately. That's not really going to do anything. So everyone needs to model the behavior we want. So how do we model that behavior? Most of the time, it just takes a bit of courage. It's really easy just to sit there when someone makes a sexist comment or something in a meeting and say absolutely nothing. Or maybe someone's talking over someone. It just takes a bit of bravery to call out that behavior. But once one person starts, it becomes your culture. There are other less scary things you can do as well. You could actively invite people to participate. If someone has sat there quiet in a meeting, ask them if they've got anything to add. So this up here is a screenshot of my team's technical documentation. Right next to how we do sprint planning, how we onboard new hires, we have how everyone is expected to behave towards each other in meetings. All these things are really easy to do, but they're equally as easy to forget to do. So by being a little bit more intentional with each other during our endless hours on Zoom, we can help people feel a little bit more included. You can even start checking for non-inclusive language in your source code. Phrases like dummy or master could easily be replaced with terms such as placeholder or primary. Airbnb has published our configuration for a linter, which we have running on every single commit, and that'll hard fail CI if we use those terms. So mentoring is a great way to help improve the culture of your community. Almost everyone has something to offer in a mentor-mentee relationship. So what's mentorship? Perhaps you're further along in your career and you can have some life lessons to share. Or perhaps the mentee is currently navigating a difficult situation that you can help out with. Or maybe you're an expert in Golang, for example, and they're stuck on this one bit and you can help them. As a mentor, you could share your network. If someone's looking for an intro to someone you've worked with before, for example. All right, does that sound like something you'd be interested in doing? Think it sounds awesome, I have no idea where to start. Come on. God, I'm genuinely quite disappointed with that. Come on, you can do better than that. Ta-da! So Laura, Anthony, and myself have created the Mac Admins Foundation Mentorship Program. We are launching the pilot phase. I can't speak. We are launching the pilot phase today. And we would like to invite people who would like to help shape the program to join us. It's really early days for the program, so we're looking for people who are willing to put in the work to help us make this an awesome resource for everybody in our community. We are looking for both mentors and mentees who will be able to pilot the program and provide feedback that will help us scale this out to meet the needs of the whole Mac Admins community. If you'd like to get involved, you can either speak to me here if you're in person, head over to macadmins.org, where hopefully by the time I'm saying this, there's something on there with telling you what to do. All right, so that's mentorship. Next, we have its sibling, sponsorship. So sponsorship is where you use your authority or seniority to advocate for someone else. Some examples may be inviting them to meetings they wouldn't usually be part of. Let's say you're in a leadership meeting or one for senior engineers. Invite the person you're sponsoring to be part of them occasionally. Advocating for their work and potential in meetings. When you're in a meeting and you're deciding who's going to do a project, advocate for the person you're sponsoring to be part of it. Or if they're ready to make that jump, even lead the project. And help them make connections. It's one thing to say, hey, you should go talk to this really important director about something, to someone who's never spoken to that director, versus you saying to the director yourself, this person is awesome and is ready to do more work with us, and I'd love it if you can make time to have a chat with them. So you'll be right if all of this sounds like what your manager is supposed to do anyway. But sponsorship doesn't need to be a manager-to-IC relationship. You can be a sponsor without being a manager. You can sponsor someone who isn't in your reporting chain. There are going to be people who are naturally disadvantaged in this area, though. So if you're a woman, you are half as likely to have a sponsor than if you're a man. That's an absolutely astounding difference. You know, as a counterpoint, women who do have a sponsor are 22% more likely to ask for a project or a promotion. So we have spoken about mentorship and how you should absolutely get involved with the MacAdmins Foundation mentorship program. And about sponsorship. On the face of it, they look like really similar things, but they're really quite different. So mentorship is free to give out. And of course, I don't mean money here. I mean that you do not need to spend any social or political capital. Let's take the example of a project here. Mentorship is when you suggest that they go to their boss and ask for that project. You might be giving them tips or whatever to help them get the project, but ultimately, you aren't really involved in getting that person you're mentoring the project. Sponsorship is where you're sat in the meeting and say, I think this person's really good, and they should be leading this project. It's putting your reputation on the line for the person you're recommending. So don't get me wrong here, mentorship is great, and it's vital. But you can really make a difference by sponsoring groups of people that need your help. So, to recap, you do not need to be a people manager to make your community more diverse. You don't even need to do it at work if you can't. We're all part of the MacAdmins community, and there are many opportunities for you to help make our community better. Diverse groups often won't volunteer or speak up. It's up to you to reach out to them when you're recruiting to actively ask them for their opinion in meetings. And use your influence to help others. Sponsor people, advocate for their work. Your voice carries weight. Use that to help others. And finally, please, 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 please join the MacAdmins Foundation Community Mentorship Program. This is a real way you can help underrepresented groups in our community. So that's it. You can find me at these places. I have a really updated website. I very occasionally post on Mastodon. You can email me with my super cryptic and hard to guess email address. And if you found this talk useful in any way, please consider donating to the MDOYVR Foundation and help save the lives of people you might actually be sitting next to right now. And if working somewhere that promotes values like this, along with working on some really interesting problems, sounds good to you, we're hiring right now. So that's it. Anyone, any questions?
Whoa, wait a minute, wait. Henry?
So actually, I think the call for mentees was already online longer ago. Is that true?
No.
But I signed up somewhere.
It was to help build out the program.
Okay. So then I was wrong. Thanks for correcting that.
Chris Chapman?
Any about?
Oh, I love you. Questions? Comments? Thank you, Graham.